You ever walked into a room and suddenly felt the shift? The smiles are fake. The silence is heavy. And the people you once trusted now look at you like you're the enemy. But you didn't do anything wrong. That's the terrifying power of a narcissist. They don't just hurt you directly. They turn others against you. Slowly, quietly, and before you know it, you're left alone, questioning your worth, replaying every conversation, wondering what lies were told behind your back. But here's what no one ever tells you. God sees it all, and His solution is nothing like what your emotions are telling you to do. In fact, it's something you'd never think about. What if the very pain you're feeling is part of a higher plan? What if God is not punishing you, but protecting you? Stay with me, because in the next few minutes, I'm going to reveal what God wants you to do when you're betrayed like this, and why that one act can shift everything. If you've ever been the target of a narcissist's lies, this is your message. Hit that subscribe button, or drop a comment if you're ready to walk in truth, not trauma. One day, they loved you. They laughed with you, texted you first, invited you everywhere. You felt safe in their presence. They saw your heart, your intentions, your truth. Also you thought. But then, everything changed. You walked into the same room, but the energy was different. Eyes glanced at you, then quickly looked away. Conversations died when you entered. You weren't sure what had happened, but you could feel it deep in your chest. A silent wall had been built around you, and somehow, everyone else had the blueprint. The people who once celebrated you were now suspicious, cold, distant. It's like they knew something you didn't, and whatever it wasn't in your favor. That's the silent destruction of a narcissist's smear campaign. They don't always come at you directly. Sometimes, they destroy you through whispers, through false tears, through twisting your words and framing you as the very thing you've tried so hard not to be. And the worst part, people believe them. You try to hold it together. You try not to ask too many questions because you don't want to seem paranoid. But your spirit knows. Something sacred has been broken. People you once trusted have now become strangers. And the narcissist, they sit comfortably in the background, pretending to be the victim of your toxicity, all while quietly collecting support for their false narrative. It's heartbreaking. It's disorienting. And for many, it's the beginning of a long emotional spiral filled with doubt, confusion, and silent rage. You start to think, maybe if I just explain myself, maybe if I defend my name, maybe if I confront them, I can fix this. But that's where most people fall into the trap, because narcissists thrive on reaction. That's their fuel. They set the stage for destruction, and the moment you try to fight back, they twist that too. They say, see, look how unstable they are. Look how dramatic. Look how angry. And just like that, your defense becomes their evidence. So what can you do when someone is attacking your character without even standing in front of you? What do you do when people you love are being turned into weapons against you? This is where God's wisdom enters the story. And it's not the advice your pain wants to hear. It's not loud. It's not aggressive. In fact, it's the exact opposite of what you're tempted to do. God says, be still. Stay silent. Let me handle it. And this is the part that no one talks about. This is what you should do. But you never think about it. Because your flesh wants justice now. Your ego wants to scream the truth. Your heart wants to gather your own army and strike back. But God's way is different. It's strategic. It's holy. And most of all, it works. When people turn against you because of a narcissist's manipulation, the natural instinct is to prove them wrong. But the spiritual instruction is to let your character prove them wrong over time. Not your words. Not your posts. Not your retaliation. Just your quiet consistency, your peace, and your unwavering alignment with who God knows you are. Silence isn't weakness. It's spiritual warfare. It starves the narcissist. It confuses those who are misled. And it invites God to step in where your strength ends. Because here's the truth. You don't need to expose them. God will. In His time. In His way. And when He does, the same people who doubted you will remember your silence and your peace, and they'll realize who you truly were all along. But in the meantime, it hurts. It hurts to feel misunderstood. It hurts to watch your name be dragged while you're praying behind closed doors. It hurts when people distance themselves from you. Not because of what you did, but because of what they heard. And it's okay to admit that. It's okay to grieve that loss. You're not just losing people. You're losing illusions. Illusions of safety. Illusions of loyalty. Illusions of being known. But even in that loss, something sacred is being born. Clarity. This pain is revealing who's really for you, and who only stood beside you because of what the narcissist allowed them to believe. And here's what's even deeper. Sometimes, God allows these betrayals to happen to protect you from deeper spiritual harm. You weren't just rejected. You were removed. God saw conversations behind your back that you didn't hear. He saw envy in hearts that smiled in your face. He saw manipulation wrapped in friendship. And rather than let you keep walking with those who secretly wished for your downfall, He let the narcissist expose it all. Not to break you, but to free you. Because sometimes, rejection is God's loudest form of protection. This is where trust comes in. Not just trusting God to fix it, but trusting that you don't need to rush the process. You don't need to rush healing. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You just need to stay close to the truth. Stay close to peace. And keep your eyes on what's ahead, not who's turning their back. This isn't about revenge. It's about release. And when you release it, truly release it, God begins to move. Not just around you, but within you. You begin to see that your identity was never built on other people's opinions. Your worth doesn't crumble because someone told a lie. Your spirit doesn't shrink because someone tried to dim your light. If anything, it shines brighter. And the more you allow God to lead you through this, quietly, humbly, faithfully, the more you realize that being misunderstood was never the end. It was the beginning of deeper strength, clearer vision, and stronger boundaries. So what should you do when a narcissist turns people against you? You stay still. You stay true. It usually starts so quietly. You don't even realize it's happening. You think you're just living your life, being kind, honest, maybe even vulnerable with the wrong person. But behind the scenes, the narcissist is already planting seeds. They don't launch a full attack right away. No, they work slowly, strategically, with charm. They know how to smile while stabbing you with subtle words. They drop comments that sound innocent on the surface, but underneath, they are designed to poison how others see you. I don't want to say anything bad, but I'm just a little concerned about her lately. Oh, is great, but sometimes his energy feels a little off, you know. They don't accuse you directly. They just raise suspicion. And the more they do it, the more people around you start to question what they once believed about you. Narcissists are masters of the twisted half-truth. They take real pieces of your story, things you've shared in trust, and reframe them in a way that makes you look unstable, dramatic, selfish, or dangerous. But because they mix truth with distortion, the people listening don't realize they are being manipulated. They think they are just hearing both sides. What's even more terrifying, the narcissist is so charming, so composed, so concerned, that their lies don't sound like lies at all. They sound like compassion. They sound like someone who cares. And slowly, without you even knowing, people start pulling away. They see you differently now. All because of a story that you never even got to hear, let alone defend. That's the narcissist's silent weapon. Social sabotage through charm and distortion. They don't need to raise their voice or make a public scene. They just gently, quietly, kill your reputation in the minds of others. And by the time you realize something is wrong, the damage is already done. You're confused. Is it you? Are you overreacting? Why are they acting weird? Why are you suddenly the outsider in your own circle? That's the genius and evil of the narcissist's game. They play innocent while casting you as the villain. And unless you've seen it before, it's almost impossible to understand what just happened. You only know one thing for sure. Everything feels different now, and you don't know how to get back what was lost. The moment you realize people actually believe the narcissist, it cuts deeper than anything the narcissists themselves ever did. It's not just about their lies anymore. It's about the people who once smiled at you, confided in you, laughed with you, now looking at you like you're a stranger. That's the hidden pain. The kind of pain you don't talk about out loud because it feels too confusing, too personal, too unreal. You're left wondering, how could they believe that about me? After everything, after all we shared. And that's when it hits you. This wasn't just a betrayal from the narcissist. It's a betrayal from the people you thought would stand by you. The confusion is overwhelming. One day you were close, the next day are cold. They don't return your messages, or if they do, it's distant. They've already formed their opinions based on whispers. You weren't even in the room to defend yourself. The narcissist told their version first, and they told it well. You start questioning everything. Your own memories, your own worth. Was I really that bad? Did I say something wrong? And the isolation creeps in quietly. You stop sharing your heart. You shrink back. You become silent not because you want to, but because you no longer know who is safe. The worst part is knowing the narcissist did it on purpose. They wanted to take away your support system. They wanted you to feel alone. Because isolation gives them power. It keeps you quiet. It makes you doubt yourself. And that's exactly where they want you. Off balance, emotionally drained, and too exhausted to fight back. But what truly devastates you isn't just what was said. It's who believed it. It's the friend who didn't ask for your side. The family member who suddenly pulled away. The coworker who acts differently but won't explain why. It's not just the narcissist who hurt you. It's the ones who followed them without a second thought. That's the pain that lingers. Not the dramatic betrayal. Not the loud drama. But the silent loss of trust. The quiet realization that not everyone who smiled with you was really for you. And in that space, where confusion meets heartbreak, something begins to shift. You start to understand. This wasn't just a personal attack. It was spiritual. And the healing won't come from fixing people's opinions. It will come from remembering who you truly are. Even when the world around you forgets. When you're falsely accused, misrepresented, or betrayed. Especially by someone as manipulative as a narcissist, your first reaction is instinctual, raw, and completely human. You want to defend yourself. You want to explain everything. You want to call everyone who's been poisoned by the lies and tell them the truth. You want to write long messages, send screenshots, voice your pain, and prove that you were never who the narcissist made you out to be. You want to set the record straight so badly that it consumes your thoughts. You replay conversations, think about what you should have said, and try to figure out where it all went wrong. Your mind goes into overdrive, not out of pride, but out of desperation. Because being misunderstood when your heart was pure is one of the deepest wounds a person can experience. You want to make them see. You want them to understand your side. You want justice. And all of that is completely natural. But it's also exactly what you shouldn't do. Because the moment you begin chasing truth in a crowd that's already bought into a lie, you're giving the narcissist what they wanted all along. Your reaction. Your defense becomes their evidence. The narcissist knows this. That's why they work behind the scenes first, because they want the people around you to be on edge before you even know what's happening. So by the time you begin defending yourself, it looks like damage control. It looks like guilt. It looks like you're scrambling because you got caught. And that's what makes it so devastating. Even when you tell the truth, it can be spun into something else. And no matter how clear or heartfelt your explanation is, those who have already been turned against you aren't always listening for truth. They are listening for confirmation of the lie they were already given. So while your heart says speak, wisdom says wait. And then there's the urge to confront. You want to face the narcissist. You want to ask why. Why did they twist your words? Why did they betray your trust? Why did they turn people against you? And most of all, how can they lie so easily and still sleep at night? You want to look them in the eyes and make them feel what they made you feel. But that confrontation won't give you what you think it will. Narcissists don't respond with remorse. They respond with denial, manipulation, deflection, or even laughter. They'll twist your pain into proof of your instability. They'll mock your emotions. And worst of all, they'll pretend they're confused about why you're upset. This leaves you more broken than before and fuels the narrative even further. You end up looking exactly like the version of you they've described to others. Sensitive, reactive, dramatic. But you're not. You're just hurting. You're human. Still, no matter how justified your emotions, acting out of that pain only deepens the trap. Then comes the urge to isolate. After everything you've gone through, the betrayal, the silence, the looks, the distance, it feels safer to retreat. You start pulling away from everyone, even those who still care. You stop responding. You cancel plans. You assume that no one wants to hear from you or that they've all turned against you. This isolation feels like protection, but it can quickly become a prison. And while you're in that quiet, lonely place, the enemy whispers lies even louder. You're alone because you're the problem. Nobody really cared about you anyway. You'll never be trusted again. And those lies, if left unchallenged, can lead you into depression, shame, and spiritual disconnection. You begin to forget who you are. You begin to question your worth. And that's exactly where the narcissist and the enemy wants you. Silent, defeated, invisible. Another temptation is to post cryptic messages, share subtle jabs on social media, or talk about what happened to anyone who will listen. Not because you want attention, but because your soul is screaming for someone, anyone, to believe you. You want someone to stand up and say, I know her. That's not who she is. You want someone to defend you the way you would have defended them. But rarely does that happen. And when it does, it doesn't always bring the peace you were hoping for. Because the real healing doesn't come from being validated by others. It comes from knowing you were true to yourself, even when no one else could see it. When you act from that wounded place, you risk becoming what they said you were. The narcissist paints you as unstable, so don't give them instability. They say you're bitter, so don't give them bitterness. They say you're vindictive, so don't chase revenge. You have to rise above the version of you they created, and that starts by refusing to become it. Every natural reaction, to defend, to explain, to fight, to isolate, feels right in the moment, but each one leads you further into the web the narcissist has already spun. It's counterintuitive, but the real strength is in restraint. It's in silence. It's in peace. That doesn't mean you don't feel pain. It doesn't mean you don't cry behind closed doors or wrestle with anger and betrayal. But it means you don't let that pain lead your actions. You give it to God. You let Him hold your broken heart, and you allow Him to guide your next steps. Because what you don't do in moments like these speaks louder than anything you could say. It tells the world, I know who I am, and I don't need to prove it to anyone. It's hard. It feels unnatural. It feels unfair. But that's where spiritual maturity comes in. That's where healing begins. Not in reacting, but in resting. Not in controlling the narrative, but in trusting the truth to rise on its own. And it will. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe not even this year. But lies don't hold forever. Masks fall. Manipulations unravel. And when they do, the ones who believe the narcissist will remember your silence, your calm, your dignity. And in that moment, everything shifts. Not because you shouted the truth, but because you lived it. So the next time you're tempted to defend yourself, explain, lash out, or isolate, pause, breathe, And remember, your reaction is your power. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all. Let the truth speak through your peace. Let God fight the battle you were never meant to fight alone. Because while the narcissist is busy building a false story about you, God is writing a real one. And that story ends with your healing, your rise, and your restoration. When you're being attacked, misunderstood, and isolated, when your name is being dragged through the mud by a narcissist who's painted you as the villain, every part of you wants to react. Everything in your body screams, say something, fix this, defend yourself. But this is the moment where God's wisdom often comes in like a quiet whisper, cutting through the chaos, saying something completely unexpected. Do nothing. Let me handle it. It feels almost irresponsible at first. Passive. Weak, even. How can I just stand by while my reputation is being destroyed? How can I say nothing when people are believing lies? But that's the twist. That's the step you'd never think about, because it goes against everything your emotions are telling you to do. And yet, it's exactly what God asks of you. God's way is not the world's way. The world teaches you to fight back, to clap back, to expose, to correct. But God's response is often stillness. His instruction is often silence. Not because you're weak, but because He is strong. Because He sees the conversations you weren't invited to. He hears the words spoken behind closed doors. He knows who's truly for you and who's just playing the part. And more importantly, He knows exactly when and how to bring the truth to light. That's why He doesn't need your panic. He needs your trust. There's something powerful that happens when you step back and let God take the lead. When you resist the urge to fix it yourself, you're making a statement, not just to others, but to your own soul. You're saying, my identity is not up for debate. I know who I am. I know what I did and didn't do. And I trust that the truth will rise in God's perfect time. That level of surrender is not weakness. It's spiritual maturity. It's choosing peace over performance. It's choosing clarity over chaos. It's choosing to believe that your battle is not against flesh and blood, but against something far deeper, something spiritual. And here's where divine wisdom reveals itself. When you don't retaliate, when you don't rush to fix what was never your mess to begin with, you actually create space for truth, for healing, for exposure. Narcissists depend on a reaction. They feed off it. They thrive when you panic. But when you respond with calm, when you choose silence instead of chaos, it confuses them. It unsettles them. It exposes them. Because now they have no fuel, no drama, no chaos to point to. Just your stillness. God has always worked in ways that seem upside down to the world. He uses the quiet things to bring about the biggest shifts. The Israelites were told to be silent as they marched around Jericho. Jesus stayed silent before Pilate, even as false accusations flew. Over and over, God shows us that silence can be more powerful than speaking. That stillness can be more victorious than striving. And when you're in the middle of a storm caused by lies, betrayal, and manipulation, it takes supernatural strength to step back and say, I won't fight this battle with my words. I'll let God handle it. That's not giving up. That's handing it over. It's not easy. Everything in you will want to step in, to clear your name, to fix the damage. But every time you take your hands off the wheel, you make room for God to move in ways you never expected. Sometimes He restores relationships. Sometimes He removes them entirely. But always, He reveals the truth. And when He does, it's undeniable. It's not built on emotion or panic or performance. It's built on clarity, on discernment, on divine timing. So if you're in that place right now, where everything inside you wants to scream your side of the story, where the pain is so loud it feels like you have to do something, pause. Just breathe. Ask God, what do you want me to do? And if the answer you feel deep in your spirit is, nothing, let me fight for you, then trust that. Trust that silence isn't surrender. It's strategy. Trust that peace isn't passivity. It's protection. And trust that God is not blind to the injustice you faced. He's watching. He's listening. And He's moving. Even if you can't see it yet. In the end, the step you never thought about, doing nothing in defense, might be the very thing that sets you free. Because when you stop trying to force the truth out into the light, you give God permission to bring it there Himself. And when He does, it will be undeniable, unshakable, and unforgettable. That's the kind of vindication no defense of your own could ever accomplish. There comes a moment in your pain when you realize that no amount of defending yourself will ever be enough. You've tried to explain. You've sent the messages. You've cried in silence and begged God for just one person to see the truth. But all you're met with is silence. Or worse, people turning their backs on you. That's when something sacred begins to unfold. It's the moment God whispers not to fight back. Not because you're weak, but because He is about to fight for you. See, narcissists thrive on drama. They throw the match and wait for the fire. But when you don't react, when you stay calm, when you choose peace over panic, something starts to shift. Your silence becomes louder than any defense. And this silence, it's not passive. It's powerful. It's divine. Because now, instead of your words trying to prove your innocence, God begins to expose their lies. Slowly, clearly, and without warning. People start noticing things they didn't see before. The charm starts to crack. The mask slips. And while they expected you to fall apart, you remained still. That stillness, it haunts them. Narcissists need your reaction to stay in control. But when you respond with silence and surrender to God's justice, it dismantles their illusion of power. One by one, the people they turned against you begin to question things. Why did you never lash out? Why did you never attack back? The truth begins to whisper in their hearts, and suddenly, the narrative breaks apart. You didn't have to force it. You just had to stay still long enough for God to act. Because when you're chosen, you don't need a spotlight to prove your truth. You just need faith that darkness can never hide forever. The silence is your shield. And while it feels like doing nothing, it is actually a statement of radical trust. It tells the world, God knows the truth, and that is enough for me. And make no mistake, God will expose what was done in the dark. Not on your timeline, but on His. It may not come through confrontation, but it will come through divine clarity. People will begin to see things for what they are, and the narcissist's carefully built image will begin to fracture. That's the power of silence when it's grounded in faith, not fear. You're not avoiding conflict because you're scared. You're letting heaven handle what the flesh cannot. The longer you stay quiet, the more their behavior begins to speak louder than your words ever could. Their need for control, their constant smear campaigns, their manipulation. It all becomes obvious when you're no longer feeding the game. So don't underestimate the silence. It's not weakness. It's obedience. And it's the exact thing that will confuse the enemy. Because silence forces them to reveal themselves. They can't help it. Narcissists need chaos. And when they don't get it from you, they unravel. Not in front of you, maybe, but in time, people will see it. They always do. That's when the tables turn. Not through revenge, not through public arguments, but through quiet revelation. People will start reaching out. Apologies may come, or maybe they won't. But either way, you'll know you chose the higher road, and God walked it with you. So if you're in that season now, if you feel abandoned, falsely accused, pushed aside by the very people you loved, remember this. Let silence be your sword. Let God be your defense. You don't need to explain what God is about to expose. You just need to stay rooted in truth. And in time, He will make it clay. Because the silence you choose today may be the very tool God uses to set the record straight tomorrow. Sometimes, when people suddenly turn their backs on you, friends vanish, family withdraws, and you're left wondering, what did I do wrong? It doesn't just feel like loss. It feels like your soul has been ripped open, especially when you know you loved those people. You showed up for them. You gave, you listened, you stayed loyal. And yet, all it took was one narcissist whispering lies behind closed doors to make them look at you like a stranger. The rejection stings. But what if I told you it wasn't rejection at all? What if it was divine removal? A holy redirection? This is where we must learn to reframe. You weren't discarded. You were protected. Because God sees what you can't see. While you were grieving the people who left, God was shielding you from the spiritual toxins they were carrying. Yes, even the ones you thought were safe. See, when a narcissist manipulates the circle around you, they are not just playing with lies. They are touching spiritual territory. They use charm, guilt, and confusion to turn others into pawns. And when God sees your name being dragged through mud, He doesn't rush in to fix it the way you want. Instead, He quietly removes you, not because you're unworthy, but because He knows your worth. There were conversations happening behind your back that you were never meant to hear, and God blocked your ears for your own peace. There were people in your life who smiled at you but secretly envied you, and God used this betrayal to finally reveal it. And the moment you were pulled out of that circle, it wasn't rejection. It was redirection, away from spiritual sabotage and toward divine alignment. You were not meant to stay where your light would always be misunderstood, or where your truth would forever be twisted. The removal hurt, yes, but that pain, that was part of the cleansing. Because God never strips without the intention to fill. He never takes away without the plan to replace. But first, He must isolate you, not to punish you, but to restore you. And maybe now, in this quiet place of loneliness, you finally hear Him again. Maybe now, you're remembering your real identity, beyond what the crowd believed, beyond the lies the narcissist spread. Maybe now, you understand that when people believe the worst about you without even asking your side, they were never really for you. They were for the image of you that made them feel comfortable. And the moment that image was challenged, they left. That's not loyalty. That's convenience. And God doesn't bless relationships built on convenience. So He removes you, even when you beg Him not to. He shuts doors you wanted open. He reveals masks you didn't want to see. But it's in that silence, in that ache of being misunderstood, that He begins the deeper healing. And when you shift your view from why did they leave me, to thank you, God, for pulling me out, everything changes. The pain turns into peace. The confusion becomes clarity. And slowly, the silence becomes sacred. You'll begin to see that your removal was a release, a spiritual detox, a divine shift. You were never rejected. You were chosen. Chosen to walk a higher path. Chosen to hear what others can't hear. Chosen to see what others refuse to see. And that kind of calling, it will always cost you something. Sometimes, it costs you people. But trust this, whatever you lose for the sake of truth, God replaces with something purer, stronger, and more aligned with who you really are. Don't chase what He removed. Don't explain yourself to those who never asked for your truth. Don't beg to be let back into rooms God pulled you out of. You don't belong there anymore. And that's not rejection. That's spiritual protection. So, breathe. Let the silence settle. And remember this, you didn't lose them. You outgrew the lie. And in the eyes of God, that's not a tragedy. That's a triumph. A divine promotion dressed in painful removal. And one day, you'll look back, not with bitterness, but with gratitude, whispering, "Thank you, God. I see it now." This is the hardest part. Not when they lied about you. Not even when people turned against you. The hardest part is this exact moment, when you know the truth, but you're told to stay silent. When you have every reason to scream your side, but God whispers, "Let me handle it." This is not about them anymore. This is about you, your growth, your faith, your soul. It's a test dressed in betrayal, a furnace disguised as silence, And every time you choose not to fight back, not to clap back, not to spiral into bitterness, something sacred is being shaped inside of you. God is not only exposing them, He's refining you. And refinement doesn't come through ease. It comes through fire. Through moments where you could react, but don't. Moments where you want to post, want to prove, want to explain, but you choose quiet strength instead. That's not weakness. That's spiritual maturity. And right now, you're in training for something bigger than approval. You're being prepared for something heavier than applause. Your silence is not passive, it's powerful. Your restraint is not defeat, it's discipline. And your tears, they are not wasted. They are washing off what the world tried to put on you and making room for what God is pouring into you. See, God doesn't just care about justice. He cares about your character. He's not just preparing a table in the presence of your enemies. He's preparing you to sit at that table with grace, not with grudges. That means learning patience when you're misunderstood. That means loving people even when they believed lies. That means releasing the need to be right, so you can be righteous. And here's the part you'd never expect. Every attack, every rumor, every betrayal, it's all working for you, not against you. Because even though it feels like you're losing people, you're gaining clarity. Even though it feels like silence is weakness, it's actually a shield. God's not punishing you with isolation. He's protecting you in secret. Because what is building in you requires a level of purity and peace that can't be built in chaos. And that's what the test is about. Will you trust God more than your emotions? Will you hold your peace when all you want is to prove your point? Will you be still when your soul is screaming to speak? That's the hidden test. Not many pass it. Most people snap. They rant. They gossip back. They chase after those who walked away. But if you can just wait, not for people to retain, but for God to respond, you will see something miraculous unfold. You will realize the silence wasn't the absence of power. It was the presence of divine precision. It hurts, I know. When friends go quiet, when even family seems distant, when the people who once laughed with you now whisper about you, it feels like loss. It feels like abandonment. But from heaven's view, it's pruning. And in the pruning, there's purpose. You're not being punished. You're being purified. This is the fire that proves your faith. The silence that sanctifies your soul. This is the season where God is removing every attachment that can't go where you're going. And yes, it feels lonely, but it's holy. So don't let this moment pass without letting it change you. Don't waste this pain by reacting like the world. You're not here for revenge. You're here for refinement. Let God do the revealing. Let God do the restoring. Let God be your reputation. Because the same people who believe the narcissist will one day see the truth. But by then, you won't even need their apology. You'll be walking in purpose. Too healed to even hold a grudge. That's the goal. That's the real victory. Not proving them wrong, but rising without needing to. This is your hidden test. Pass it with silence. Pass it with grace. Pass it with your eyes fixed on God, not on what was said, not on who left, not on how unfair it feels. Keep your heart clean, your mind still, and your spirit open. There comes a moment in every spiritual battle when you realize it was never just about you. The pain they caused, the lies they spread, the people they turned against you. It all felt so personal. But deep down, you start to see the bigger picture. You weren't attacked because you were weak. You were attacked because of what you carry. That light inside you, the peace you hold, the way your presence brings calm, the way you still manage to love when others choose to hate. That is what threatened the narcissist the most. They didn't just want to break your spirit. They wanted to dim your light. Because narcissists don't just hate people. They hate what they can never become. And when someone walks in truth, in purpose, and in divine alignment, it disturbs the darkness that lives in others. See, narcissists operate from a place of ego and emptiness. They crave control. They feed off attention. But what truly terrifies them is someone who doesn't need validation from the world, someone whose confidence comes from God. When you walk in that quiet power, when you choose peace over drama, when you love without condition but also hold boundaries without fear, it exposes them. It shows the world what they are not. That's why they strike first. That's why they lie. That's why they manipulate. Because they hope if they can turn enough people against you, maybe they can silence the power of your presence. But the truth is, they can't. Not really. Because what God placed in you cannot be undone by human opinion. It hurts, though, doesn't it? To see friends change, family grow distant, and people believe stories that are twisted versions of who you are. That wound goes deep, not just because of the betrayal, but because of the injustice. You know your heart. You know the good you gave. You know how hard you tried to stay kind, to stay fair. And yet, here you are, left to clean up the emotional mess someone else caused. But here's what you must understand. The pain you feel is not just the result of people turning on you. It's the weight of being spiritually aware in a world that often chooses darkness. Your sensitivity is not weakness, it's spiritual perception. Your grief is not failure, it's evidence that your love was real. This pain is proof that your light is real, that it touched people, that it stirred something. Because only something real can threaten what's fake. You see, narcissists thrive in shadows. They wear masks and play roles. But your light, the one that comes from truth, from healing, from walking with God, shines through all that. And that's what makes you dangerous to them. Not because you fight back, but because you don't have to. Your presence alone is confrontation. Your growth is proof that healing exists. Your refusal to stoop to their level is a mirror to their emptiness. And that's what they can't stand. That's why they fear you. So if you're wondering why they targeted you, why they lied, why they launched that silent campaign behind your back, understand this. It wasn't random. It was spiritual. It was darkness trying to dim a light it couldn't understand. It was fear masked as hatred. It was insecurity dressed as arrogance. But here's the truth they never expected. Every attempt they made to break you only made your light shine brighter. Every betrayal became a deeper root of your strength. Every loss revealed who was really meant to walk with you. And through it all, God was watching. Not to punish, but to refine, to strengthen, to awaken. Because this awakening isn't just about seeing them clearly. It's about seeing yourself clearly. It's about realizing that your worth was never in their words, their approval, or even their loyalty. Your worth comes from God. And the more you walk in that, the more their games lose power. You don't have to explain yourself to anyone. You don't have to defend what God already knows. Your only job is to keep shining, to stay soft, but not foolish, to be kind, but not blind, to forgive, but not return. Because every time you choose peace over reaction, love over bitterness, silence over chaos, you're walking in your true power. You're walking in the Spirit. And here's the most powerful part. God will deal with them. Not because you wish them harm, but because justice is written into His nature. And when someone attacks one of His chosen, when they sow lies and pain for sport, He sees it all. He hears the conversations you weren't in. He knows the truth you didn't speak, and is already working behind the scenes, not just to restore your reputation, but to elevate your soul, to show the world that you didn't just survive the betrayal, you transcended it. So today, if your heart is heavy, if your name has been dragged, if your light feels dim, remember this. You are still chosen. You are still protected. You are still enough. They didn't break you. They awakened you. And what they meant for harm, God is using for your rise. Keep shining. Let your silence speak. And let your light blind every lie that was ever told about you. And now comes the part that feels the most impossible. The part your heart resists, your mind argues with, and your flesh wants nothing to do with. After all the lies, the betrayal, the isolation, and the storm of confusion, God leans in and whispers the one command that breaks every rule of human instinct. Bless them. Forgive them. Not because they apologized. Not because they deserve it. Not even because they've stopped doing what they're doing. But because this is a divine move that shifts the entire spiritual atmosphere. This is where heaven intervenes and angels take notice. You see, when a narcissist turns people against you, your first thought is to clear your name, to make people see the truth, to expose the liar. But God's move isn't defensive. It's offensive in a spiritual way. He says, forgive them. Because forgiveness isn't weakness, it's warfare. It says, you didn't break me. You didn't change me. You didn't pull me out of alignment with who I truly am. When you bless someone who cursed you, it sends shockwaves through the spiritual realm. It confuses darkness. It humbles pride. It silences every demonic force that tried to bait you into becoming like them. Because the real goal of the narcissist isn't just to smear your name. It's to contaminate your spirit. It's to get you bitter, angry, and reactive, so you lose the light inside you. But when you respond with peace, with grace, with God's wisdom, you keep your oil. You remain chosen. This doesn't mean you go back to unsafe people or pretend nothing happened. No, it means you remove your emotional claws from the outcome and hand the whole thing over to heaven. You say, God, I release them. I refuse to carry this poison. I choose freedom. And that act, silent, painful, holy, is what activates divine justice. That's when the truth begins to come out in ways you never expected. That's when people begin to see through the fog. That's when God restores your peace and gives you double for your trouble. Because you didn't fight the way the world fights. You fought with the weapons of the Spirit, mercy, silence, endurance, and grace. And while they played chess with people's minds, you stayed in alignment with heaven. And heaven never forgets those who endure injustice with clean hands and a faithful heart. So, bless them, not for them, but for you. Forgive them, not because it's easy, but because it's powerful. This is the one act that changes everything. And it's the reason the enemy is terrified of you. Because you are unshakable. You are fireproof. You are light. And when you do the one thing no one expects, you let God show up and win the battle in ways you never imagined. So you stayed quiet. You didn't clap back. You didn't expose them. You didn't match their cruelty. You took the high road, even when it felt like the loneliest path in the world. And now you're wondering, what happens next? When will the truth come out? When will justice show up? Let me tell you, God saw everything. Every tear you wiped in secret. Every time you swallowed your pain. Every time you chose grace when you could have chosen revenge. And God does not waste those moments. He stores them up like treasure. Because the same road that broke you is the one He will use to crown you. You see, vindication doesn't always come fast. But when it comes with power. It comes when you least expect it. It comes in ways that silence every lie spoken against you. God has a way of turning tables without you lifting a finger. The people who believe the narcissist's lies will begin to see the cracks. The ones who turned away will slowly circle back. Not because you shouted the truth, but because the truth speaks for itself. When you walk with God, you don't have to campaign for your character. You just have to keep walking. Keep being kind. Keep showing up in peace. And over time, your fruit will speak louder than any rumor ever could. Vindication means God brings everything into the light, at the right time, in the right way. It means restoration of what was stolen, your peace, your joy, your confidence. It means clarity replaces confusion, and truth rises above every shadow. You may feel like nothing's happening now, but behind the scenes, heaven is moving. The delay is not denial, it's divine strategy. God is positioning you, building you, preparing you for a restoration that can't be reversed. So hold your head high, not because you're perfect, but because you stayed aligned with your purpose. Because even in the fire, you kept your soul clean. And that kind of obedience never goes unnoticed. So what happens next? God shows up, not just to prove them wrong, but to prove that choosing love, choosing faith, choosing Him was always the real victory. This hurts. It hurts more than words can explain. Being lied about, betrayed, twisted, discarded like you never mattered, it burns. The kind of pain that wakes you up in the middle of the night wondering how someone could be so cruel. The kind of ache that steals your appetite, your energy, your smile. And yet, even in the storm, God whispered, "Do it anyway. Forgive. Stay quiet. Walk away." And every part of you screamed, "But they don't deserve it." You wanted to defend yourself, to prove your worth, to scream the truth from the rooftops. But God said, "No, child. I will fight for you." So you chose the harder road. Not because it felt good, but because obedience was more important than revenge. Because somewhere deep inside, your soul knew, this isn't about them. This is about you. About who you're becoming. About what God is doing in you, through you, and for you. Yes, it hurt to let go. Yes, it hurt to bless someone who broke you. But healing doesn't come from getting even. It comes from getting free. And the only way to truly be free is to obey, even when it feels like your heart is breaking in the process. Because when God asks you to do something painful, it's not to punish you, it's to purify you, to prune away everything that's not meant for the next season, to unchain you from the trauma and make room for peace that passes all understanding. You don't forgive because they asked. You forgive because God asked. You don't stay silent because you're weak. You stay silent because your strength is in your surrender. And in that surrender, God does something supernatural. He starts to heal the parts of you they tried to break. He starts to build a future that they'll never be able to touch. You start to laugh again. Not fake laughter, but the deep, soul-cleansing kind that says, "I'm still standing." You begin to rise, not with bitterness, but with purpose. That's what obedience does. It unlocks what revenge never could. And yes, it still stings sometimes. The memory, the injustice, the silence. But now you understand, obedience to God is never wasted. It's your bridge to healing, to clarity, to divine vindication. So when someone asks you why you didn't strike back, why you didn't expose them, why you still chose love, just say this: because it hurt. But God said do it. And that whisper, that still, small voice in the middle of your storm, that was the sound of your freedom being born.